Hello, it's Beverleigh here over at Crafty and Chaos with another video for you, and the final part in our Thanksgiving series, and it's the Pilgrim Girl file. So this is the file we're going to be making, or attempting to make, and oops, I think I've got a rogue hand there. We will be using some of the things that we made in our previous file to help us along the way, because it's pointless making them twice if you've made them once, so we can sort it out again. So I'm just going to bring on the Mill Pilgrim as well, move him off to the side, because we're going to use the same basic head shape. Okay, so I'll just undo that. So I'm just going to select the ears. Just want to want to try and get all of the bits for the head. So to get those out of the way, I'm going to select the head, bring that onto the mat. Just drag the greeting with it, so I'm going to delete that. And then I'm just going to drag on the hands from the Pilgrim, because we're going to reuse one of those, and also the shoes, because we're going to adapt those, and the buckle. That can go. So I just need the buckle for the shoe. If I can get a click on it and just grab it without grabbing everything else. Wants me to make it a bit bigger so I can move it. We'll shrink it back down at this end. Okay, so we can sort it out from there. So we're going to be reusing the face, the hand, and the shoes. And I'm going to then select the rest and delete it. And if there's anything else, I can always drag it on later. So we're just going to delete them. So I'm going to highlight the head and group it so that I can move it as one piece. And we're going to be then working on this body section. So I'll just move off the other parts off to the side like so. So we're going to start with some basics. So we're going to bring on some shapes to carry on with our project. Okay, so first of all, we need something to create this part of the file with. And for that, I'm going to bring on the semicircle and an oval shape. And I'm going to use one on top of the other like so. And then I'm going to select both, line them up on the vertical axes and edit, remove the overlap. So that's give us that shape. Now if we zoom in a little, if I double click to expose the nodes, I want to just move this one out a little and this one out a little, and this one down a little, to get that shape like so. And then I'm going to I've just select it and I'm going to move it down. Then I'm going to bring in the oval shape and I'm going to make it less tall and a little bit wider. In fact, I don't think it was the oval shape. I think it was more like this shape that I used for the top of the file. And I think I rotated it by 90 degrees. Close that down. I extended it there. Bit too much. Fit it on top so that we've got that kind of shape either side. I'm going to line them up to the vertical axes like so, and then I'm going to just duplicate I'm just going to duplicate that one and then I'm going to use it to cut this shape underneath. So all I'm going to do is move that one out of the way. I'm going to line those two up. I'm going to edit, line them up vertically, and edit, process the overlap and remove the overlap. So then that's given us this shape. So then I'll edit and divide. So we've got those as individual parts. And if I click on that, this goes behind there. And if we make it white, everything white, it shows up better. Move that out of the way. This one is going to the back, like so. And that's produced the Pilgrim ladies headwear, if you will. So I'm just going to line them up vertically, and I'm going to group them for now, like so. I'm going to put them there, and then I'm going to delete that. Next, we're going to work on the tunic, and for the tunic, I brought on a rectangle shape, the rounded sort of, no, it wasn't that. It was the square rectangle. Oops, where's it gone? And we're going to rotate it by 90 degrees, and we're going to bring that down like so. Going to double click to expose the nodes, and we just want to move that one out a tad that way and that one out a tad that way to get that slightly flared bottom to the skirt, if you will. And then we're going to be working on the top part. So again, we're going to be bringing on a rounded rectangle, and we're going to be shrinking it down, placing it on top of this one, like so. I want it a little bit narrower, and then I highlight both, select them, group vertical, and edit and weld. Oops, that's not gone on the vertical, has it? So we need to select both, line them up on the vertical axes, and if it's not quite lining up the way you want because you've not quite got that symmetrical at the bottom, I'm just going to adjust it a little bit more. I'm going to move it into position. Again, I'm just going to play around with this setting here till I'm happy with it. That's looking better now. I'm going to select both, try to centre them now, and whoops, weld. Whoop. Select both and weld. So that's produced a tunic. I then brought on this shape, and I'm going to make it a little bit shorter and narrower. Then I'm going to rotate it, and we'll try it at 45 degrees first. I think it was round about that angle, and then you can always just adjust it slightly till you get it to the angle of your choice. I'm moving that into there like so, hitting D. I'm going to hit D on my keyboard and edit and flip on the vertical axes. Bring this across to this side, select both, line them up to the top, and then group them. And then we're going to line everything up of that vertical, and then we're going to weld those together. So that's given us the dress shape and the tunic. So if we bring on the head now, obviously the file's going to be a little bit big for now, and if we make this black like so, we can position that so that we can see the girl's neck, and we're just going to select everything and move her up a little bit so we can see what we're doing. So this is where we're up to now. So next I'm going to bring in the hand, position it. We need to flip that one on the vertical axes, and we're going to rotate it, and we're going to make it bigger and bring it in like so. Then we're going to duplicate that one, edit, flip, and bring that one there like so. Now we can send that to the back if you want to make it look better, and that's how we're looking now. So now we've made the tunic, the hat. We're now going to look at making these dangly parts on the hat. So I'm just going to move the hat to one side. I brought on to do this sort of plaster shape. I made it long, very, very narrow and long. And then I rotated it by 90 degrees, like so. And I positioned it onto the side of the hat, of the girl's hat. I then clicked off and hit D on my keyboard, moved that across to this side. I then double clicked it because what I wanted it to be is not a perfect shape. I just wanted to flare it out a little bit there and flare it out a little bit here. That's what I did on my original file. So I'm just using the nodes to pull the bottom part so it's a little bit wider. And then what I did, so if you like one better than the other and I'm liking that one better, I'm going to duplicate that and flip it. And then I think they're going to be a little bit long, so I'm just going to bring on a square just to cut them down a little bit because they're too long. And I don't want them exactly the same length either, because then again it'll look a little bit too sterile and too contrived. So I'm just going to bring that onto there and this one onto here, and I think that's looking okay. And the fact that one's shorter than the other, they probably would be in real life, it wouldn't be quite so perfect. So that's where we're going. So I'm just going to try to select all three pieces, and then I'm going to edit and weld. So, oh sorry, not weld, edit, undo. I just want to ungroup that top bit because I only want to weld these two parts to the bottom part of that. So edit and weld. And then again we need to send that one to the back because that's going to be cut in two parts, and that way then it will give it that dimension from behind. We'll make them white, and this is going to be white, and we can see where we're up to, and that's where we've got the hat, or I don't really know what you call it other than some sort of a hat. I'm going to group them and position this onto our young girl. Okay, so that's where we're up to now. Oops. And like every file that you do is going to be slightly different. I'm just going to undo that step because I just want to make these a little bit shorter. So again, I'm just moving them, bringing on a square. I'm going to use that to trim these down. I'm going to select both of those and the square, edit, process the overlap, remove the overlap. I'm going to move the square off to the side. I'm going to bring these back in like so, and I'm just going to ungroup that bit again. Is it ungrouped? Yeah, it's already ungrouped, so I can just need to move that over a little bit. So I'm just going to select those three pieces and edit and weld. And again, we'll select that piece and make it white, like so. So that's where we're up to. So then I'm going to select both and I'm going to group them. We'll put that into place. That's where we're at with our Pilgrim Girl, if you will. Okay, so that's where we're up to. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to work on her hair. And to do that, I brought on the wedge shape and I rotated it round a little. Is it the wedge shape? And sorry. Okay, so now we're going to work on the Pilgrim Girl's hair. And to do that, I'm going to bring on the Pilgrim Boy again. So I'm just going to go back to my basics not my basic shapes, I want my projects. So I'm going to click on projects. I'm going to bring on one of my pilgrim men. Just going to move him off to the side. Click off, and it's the hair that I'm wanting to get this part, so I'm going to delete the other parts. And I'm going to edit and ungroup him. I'm going to take the hair, and then I'm going to select those bits, and I'm going to delete those. Then all I did was duplicated it and made it into sort of 2 files like so. I'm going to group them, and I'm also going to make them, I made them a reddish colour just so that they be different from the other one. I need to just ungroup that one a little bit just while I move it down until you're happy with it basically. So I used one to overlap the other so that it looked like she had some waves in her hair. I'm then going to group those together, and we might need to make it a little bit bigger for our figure. Just going to pop that onto her head. I know it looks a bit weird, but remember, she is going to be wearing a hat, so that's not all going to show. We're going to bring the hat to the front and position it, and as you can see now, you've got that effect of her hair. So next we're going to work on her apron. So again, we need a basic shape, so we're going to bring on a sort of square shape, and I'm going to shrink it down widthwise but make it longer. Just need to get rid of that rogue piece that's knocking around. I'm going to bring it to the top so we can see what we're working with, and I'm going to turn it white. Okay, like so. Now again, I didn't want the bottom of her apron to be too clean and straight like it is at the moment. I actually wanted it to have a wavy bottom, so this is what I did. So if I zoom in on that part and then go on to my selection tool, I'll double click to expose the nodes, and what I did is added a couple of nodes here. So I'm selecting the bits, and the bit that's going turquoise is where I'm adding additional nodes, and then I could sort of move them to make them less perfect in a straight line, if you will, because it wouldn't hang that way. And then I just made them into curves, so they were curves rather than straight lines, so that then when you double click to expose the nodes, you can move them and it makes them sort of wavy rather than dead perfectly straight. And you just can play around with this until you're happy with it. So just to review, I made sure that the nodes at the bottom were curves, and if you want to hide the other bits so that you can see that you've made them all curves, you can hide the handles by clicking this. So if you unclick it, you see the handles that you can move them round with, and if you hide them, then you just see the nodes. So then it might be easier for you to operate if you've not got too many things on the screen. So that's where we're up to, and I'm just going to unhide them and show you what the handles do. So they just make it so that you can manoeuvre them like so. I think that one's a little bit too high, so we'll bring that back a bit, and so on, until you're happy with the shape. And I'm just going to view fit to mat and see how we're looking, and I'm quite happy with that. That's quite a neat job, I think, and you can play around with that as much as you want until you're happy with it. Then I'm going to bring on this shape again and shrink it right down. This is going to make the apron sort of across this band part here, and I'm going to make it white so I can see what I'm doing. Bring it down. Obviously it's a little bit wide at that, so I'm just going to shrink it in a little bit. I want it to be slightly wider than the top of the apron, but so it looks like it's tied round her waist, like so. Okay, so the next thing we needed to do was work on her shoes. Now all I did was just to bring on those shoes that I brought from the gentleman, if you will, I'm going to ungroup them and I'm going to click off and delete one of them. Then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and a little bit wider. And then I'm also going to bring on that shape again, this shape. I brought it on, there we are. And I'm going to shrink it right down. I'm going to bring it down to where the other part of the shoe is, if you will. Because I wanted these to look like they had a little bit of a sole on. So they'd be just a little bit different than the gentleman's shoes. And I'm going to place that at the bottom of that one. Just needs to be just a tad wider. And then I'm going to select both, line them up on the vertical axes, and then I'm going to weld them like so. I'm going to turn it back to black by selecting it and turning on the black selection tool. And then I'm going to move it into position to see what it's looking like. And at the minute it's a little bit too big, so I'm going to shrink it proportionally until I get the right size, and I might make it a little bit wider. And I think I'm going to make it a slightly paler colour so we can see what's actually happening at the feet. So I'm just going to zoom in there so you can see. So that's where we're at, and I'm going to select that one, hit D on my keyboard to duplicate and line that up there. Then I'm going to select both and I'm going to group them, and I'm going to send them to the back so that they're behind the dress. Then we're going to view, fit to mat, and see what we're looking like. Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm going to just move them up just a tiny bit, and that's what we're looking like now. So then for the buckles, so again, I did bring on the one from the Pilgrim Father, if you will, the one that I've already created. And like I said, it's a bit time consuming to keep creating everything from scratch. So if you can reuse some of these things, it's a good idea to do so. So I'm just changing the size of the buckle so that it fits the shoe. And I'm just going to put it there, and then I'm going to edit undo that, and I'm going to make two of them by hitting D on my keyboard. And then I'm going to position, oops, dear me, don't want it like that shape. I'm going to select them both and put them into position on the shoes like so. And that one I think just needs to go, zoom in. Hit the selection tool, and then I'm after selecting just the buckle, and then we can send that back one layer, except it's not wanting to let me send it back one layer, so we're going to save it as the girl. Oops. We're going to hit save OK. We're going to refresh the project so that then our missing parts come back. I'm going to select, sorry, I need to zoom in and then I can see what I'm doing. And zooming right in, click on the selection tool, click on the buckle, and then send it one layer back. So that's where we're up to, and view, fit to mat. So that's where we're up to next. Next we're going to make the buttons. So again, I need the basic shapes, and I'm just going to use a circle. And I'm going to shrink it right down. Hit D 3 times on my keyboard. I'm going to select each one, and we're going to make them the similar sort of grey like the shoes so that they stand out on the black. And then we're just going to position them on her tunic like so. Okay, so the last thing we need to make then is this cowl sort of neckline, and for that I used this shape and I shrank it down a little bit like so. Then I got the circle, not the circle, the triangle, brought it in, and I need to make it a little bit narrower because I want that a bit wider like so. And I'm going to select, oh, I don't want to select everything, just the triangle and that shape. Edit and line them up on the vertical axis, and edit, process the overlap and divide. And that's given us these two shapes. Now I'm going to divide them, and I'm just going to make them both white so that they stand out. So white, and then I'm just going to line them back up again to the top, because I also just want to trim the top off so it's straighter at the top. So I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to line them up to the top. I'm going to group them, then making sure that the rectangle's on top. I'm going to select both files and edit, and I'd meant to press process the overlap, remove overlap. That's what we needed to do. And then you can see that this is coming into sort of that shape. So we can move that one away now. We can double click on this one to expose the nodes. And I'm just going to move that node up a little bit and this one out a little bit, like so, till I'm happy with the shape. And I've got just a couple of too many nodes here, so I'm just going to move, didn't want to move all of them, so I'm just going to undo that. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's happening. Get on the selection tool, double click. I'm going to hide the selection points, and I'm just going to move this one down a little, and I'm just going to bring on the handles now so I can see what we're looking like, so that we can see where we're going with this. And at the minute it seems to be, I'm just going to select that this node, I can't find the other handle, so it's because it's straight. So we'll make it a curve, and now we should be able to manoeuvre it better without causing too much of a problem. So now we can manoeuvre that until we're happy with the curve. You can try it on our lady. Just going to shrink it down a little, that's gone a bit too small. Just going to undo that. I'm going to zoom fit to matte, view fit to matte, and I'm just going to double click again, and I want to make that one a curve as well, so that I can curve that one out and this one out too, so that I get the nicer shape. When I'm happy with the shape, and you can play around with this as much as or as little as you want, I'm going to duplicate it, edit and flip it and bring it to the other side. And I'm going to line both of those up to the top so that we've got a collar in position. And then obviously you can adjust the buttons to where you want them to be. So that's more or less the file completed now. So all I need to do then is I'm just going to group everything together initially. And obviously you can play around a little bit longer till you're 100% happy with your file. I'm just going to make her a little bit wider because she seems a little stockier. And then I'm going to make her a little bit shorter, like so. So that seems to be more in line with what we've already got. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do next is just make a duplicate of her. And I'm going to, obviously we would ungroup that one before you cut it, but I'm just going to move her off to that side a bit. And I'm just going to delete some of these things that are hanging around the mat now. So I can delete, oh no, these shoes belong to her, don't they? So I'm going to edit undo that one. So what we're going to do now, this is the one that's grouped together. We're going to try to weld it into one piece. And if we can't, because it's got an intersecting path, what we need to do is edit and ungroup it. And we're going to try to group together the pieces that we need. So we're going to try first of all welding those together. And if you do it bit by bit, sometimes you're more successful than trying to weld it all at once. So if I just move that out and see where we're up to, so that's where we're up to, edit, undo, and we're going to carry on and weld that to the tunic. So we're going to weld that, like so. Then we're going to try to weld the face, so weld that. And what we've got here is, if I click on that face and ungroup it, it's because the features are still selected and I just need the head and the body. So we're going to weld, oh sorry, edit undo, we're going to weld those. So we need to select that, just the face and the body, and then we're going to weld that together. Edit undo. Just going to do that once more because it's not quite welded it, so we're going to try welding again. Not quite sure why it's not welding to that piece. I think it's these that are getting in the way. I'm just going to try to zoom in a bit and see if I can delete the features and if that helps, because I think it's trying to weld those and that's not what we want. We want to get rid of those because it's making it difficult to weld our face to our... So I'm just deleting those. I'm going to bring the head back in. I'm going to centre it to the body like so, and I'm going to weld that. Weld into that. I think there's something underneath. There we are. Now we've managed to weld all of that together, so now we've got the hands to weld. So we'll try and weld that one. And last time I did that, I remember what would happen is the fingers had actually twisted on top of each other, so they created an intersecting path. So what you can do there is just zoom right in, so you get a really good view of the hand. Double click to expose the nodes, and you just need to just adjust them slightly so that they're not touching. So you're just going to adjust the fingers just ever so slightly. Let's check it now. Just move that one down a little bit. And we'll try now, see if that's any better. And again, we've got that open path. So I'm just going to move the hand away and I'm just going to zoom in and see what's going on. So we'll go right in, double click to expose the nodes, and what we don't want here where they're touching is what's causing us the issue. So what we need to do is make them not touching and certainly not crossed. Can you see how that one's crossed? It needs to be uncrossed, because if it's crossed you're going to struggle to weld. So again, let's just make sure that we're not crossed at the top here. So we're going to move the handles. There we are. So that one's definitely not crossing now. Something weird there. So let's double click that. Hit minus for that one. Okay. And we'll do the same here. We're just going to make sure that those are not crossed. Now, if we double click that now, we can add a node in there and we can bring that a little bit closer, but without making it too dissimilar to what it was to start with. So just going to straighten it up a bit like so. I'm just moving that one in just ever so slightly like so. Then I'm going to view fit to map, and I'm going to duplicate it so that we've got one for the other side. I'm going to delete that one, and we're just going to try now to weld those together. And as you can see now, it's done it because we had that intersecting path we've dealt with. So you could do it the simpler hands if you wanted, like I showed you with the Pilgrim Father, and that would eliminate this step. So we can, now we're just going to edit undo that. I just wanted to see what was underneath. So I just want just the shoes and the body, and we're going to weld those like so. Then the rest of it underneath can be deleted. All I need to do then is, that is now going to be a matting layer for underneath this file. So I'm just going to make that one ever so slightly bigger by creating an offset. I'm going to shrink it down, say OK, outward. So that's our matting layer. So I'm going to send that to the back. like so. And you can see how that's going to fit on there. I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to click on this one from behind, hit D on my keyboard, duplicate it, edit and flip it on the horizontal axis. I'm going to bring the two together so that they're touching, line both up to the top, and then we're going to weld the two bodies together that make the shaped card. So when that folds over, and I made the back one on here white so that if it wasn't as perfect a mat as it could have been because of the having to adjust the hands slightly, it wasn't as obvious. Okay, so we did that, and then if we select both, everything there, we can move it across. Oh, I'm just going to group it temporarily, so edit and group. Then we can, that would mat on top of our other piece here, and that will be our Pilgrim lady. So that's that file now complete. So if you've liked it, please like, share and subscribe. I will make the file available on my blog at Beverleigh 10 Blogspot, where you can download already the Pilgrim Father and the turkey, and you can get then the full set. Think a nice table decoration or place decoration on your tables for your happy Thanksgiving meals. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.